The massive constellation of Pisces holds an ancient legend of the goddess Aphrodite turning into a fish to escape a monster. To avoid getting lost in the turbulent currents, she and her son forever tied themselves with an unbreakable starry ribbon. And today, right here lies the 0 kilometer of celestial coordinates, the vernal equinox point. Hiding here as well is Van Maanen's star, an incredibly dense dead white dwarf the size of our Earth.
Welcome. Today we're turning our attention to a patch of sky you've almost certainly heard of, the constellation Pisces. But we're not going to be talking about astrology. Instead, we're going to examine Pisces through the lens of pure physics and astronomy. Because hidden within this very faint, unassuming pattern of stars is a point of absolutely monumental importance for the entire science of mapping the cosmos. And that right there presents us with a fascinating paradox. Pisces has no really bright stars. It's sprawling, yes, but it's faint. So the big question we need to answer is this: how did this celestial ghost become the anchor point for our entire system of coordinates in the sky? The answer isn't something you can see with your eyes, but rather a conceptual point that, right now, happens to fall within its borders. The key to unlocking this whole thing is the vernal equinox. The easiest way to think about it is to compare it to maps of the Earth. We have the prime meridian at Greenwich, right? That's our 0-degree line of longitude, the starting point for measuring everything. Well, the vernal equinox is basically the prime meridian for the sky. It's the designated kilometer zero of the heavens, the origin for the coordinate system we call right ascension. It marks the precise spot where the sun's path crosses the celestial equator as it moves north in the spring. And from that single invisible point, we measure the position of everything, every star, every galaxy in the entire universe.
Now here's the crucial part. This point isn't fixed. Because the Earth has a slow wobble on its axis, a phenomenon we call precession, this 0 point actually drifts across the sky over a very long cycle, about 26,000 years. A couple of thousand years ago, this point was over in the constellation Aries, which is why you'll still sometimes hear it called the first point of Aries. But that wobble, precession, has carried it steadily westward, and for us, in our current era, it resides right here within the boundaries of Pisces.
Now, despite being faint, don't mistake Pisces for being small. It's actually vast. This number, 889.4, that's its area in square degrees. To put that in perspective, that makes it the 14th largest of all 88 official constellations. It covers a significant piece of celestial real estate.
The shape of the constellation itself is also quite distinctive. It isn't a tight little clump of stars. Instead, it's more like two long, straggling lines of stars that meet at a single point, forming a large V shape in the sky. These two lines represent the two fish from mythology, tied together by a cord at that main vertex star, Aries.
Okay, so let's get practical. If you want to see it for yourself, the good news is you most likely can. Because Pisces straddles the celestial equator, it's visible from almost everywhere on the planet, from the North Pole all the way down to 65 degrees south latitude. The best time of year to look for it is in the autumn in the northern hemisphere, so September through November, when it gets to its highest point in the sky around midnight.
So let's zoom in on some of the astrophysical treasures hiding in Pisces, starting with that vertex star, its alpha star, Aries. The name itself means the cord in Arabic, which is pretty fitting. But what's really fascinating is that Aries isn't one star. It's a magnificent binary star system. From 139 light-years away, what you're actually seeing are two hot white stars, both hotter and more massive than our sun, locked in a slow gravitational dance. They take about 700 years to complete just one orbit around each other.
So, from a star system in its prime, let's now jump to the very end of a star's life. This number, 14.1 light-years, is the distance to an object called Van Maanen's star, and its proximity is what makes it so scientifically important. It is the closest known solitary white dwarf to us.
And this star beautifully illustrates the extreme physics of what's left over when a star dies. I want you to just try to visualize this. Picture our planet, Earth. Now, imagine taking the entire mass of our sun and crushing it down into a ball the size of the Earth. The density is almost impossible to comprehend. Van Maanen's star is a stellar corpse, the collapsed core of a star that's run out of fuel. It's not generating energy anymore, it's just a cooling ember. And because it's so close, it's a perfect laboratory for studying these final stages of stellar evolution.
All right, let's look at another exotic star in Pisces, TX Piscium. This is a carbon star, and visually it's just fascinating. In its late stages of life, this star has dredged up huge amounts of carbon from its core and brought it into its atmosphere. Now, this carbon in the atmosphere acts like soot, and it absorbs the shorter wavelengths of light, like blue and green.
The result is that only the longer, redder wavelengths manage to punch through this haze, giving the star this incredibly intense, deep cherry red color.
So now let's pull our view way, way back. From single stars to an entire city of them. This is Messier 74. It is a textbook example of what we call a grand design spiral galaxy, sitting about 32 million light-years away. And we have an incredibly fortunate viewing angle from Earth. We see it almost perfectly face-on. This lets us witness its beautiful, perfectly defined spiral arms, traced with clusters of young, hot blue stars and glowing pink regions where new stars are being born. It really is a perfect specimen.
Now, while our focus is clearly on the physics, the cultural context is always instructive. Pisces is tied to two main Greek myths. The first is a story of fear and escape, where the goddess Aphrodite and her son Eros leap into a river to escape the monster Typhon. They turn into fish and tie themselves together with a cord so they won't be separated in the chaos. The second myth is more of a tragedy, about the eternal love between a nymph, Galathea, and a mortal, Acus, who are also transformed into fish to escape the jealous Cyclops, Polyphemus.
So how can you actually find this significant constellation for yourself? Well, the key is to start with a much easier landmark, the Great Square of Pegasus. Once you've found that big, obvious square in the sky, look directly south of it. You'll find a little ring of faint stars called the circlet. That's the head of the western fish. From there, you can trace one faint line of stars heading east towards Andromeda and another line heading south. Where they meet, that's the vertex, Aries.
And so, we conclude. I think Pisces really compels us to look beyond what's bright and obvious. It's a single constellation that holds both the hyperdense, Earth-sized remnant of a dead star and a magnificent sprawling galaxy 32 million light-years away. It's a powerful reminder that the celestial ocean is a place of incredible extremes, and that sometimes the most important locations are not marked by the brightest beacons, but by the quiet, invisible turning points of cosmic time.
Thank you, friends. Strive for understanding and become wiser. See you soon.